Reliance Industries earns approximately 2 crore rupees every single minute. But the architect of that wealth didn't start in a boardroom. He started here, standing in the blistering sun, pumping gas into cars for a multinational corporation in Yemen. Dhirubhai Ambani had none of the usual prerequisites for building a massive business. He was born to a village schoolteacher, squeezing a family of 7 into a modest 2-room house in Gujarat. To get his start in this exact era of retail, he had to leave home. At just 16 years old, he boarded a steamer and traveled 2,400 kilometers to Aden. He landed a job as a clerk for a firm that controlled nearly 80% of all trade across the Red Sea. It was in Aden that he noticed a bizarre inefficiency in the local currency. The silver content physically inside the Yemeni rial coin had a higher market value than the actual face value of the coin itself. This shows exactly how he exploited it. He would buy a batch of rial coins for 10 British pounds, melt them down, and ship the extracted silver to London for 12 pounds, a direct, guaranteed profit margin of 2 pounds per transaction. By the time authorities caught on and stopped him, he had already made a small fortune. He realized that a clerk's salary would never generate this kind of scale. Building an empire required hunting for the hidden inefficiencies of the market. Returning to India, he squeezed his ambition into a 350-square-foot office in Bombay, armed with 1 telephone and a plan to trade spices and fabrics. Soon, he spotted a severe bottleneck in the Indian economy, a massive consumer demand for synthetic threads like polyester. This diagram breaks down the barrier he faced. Domestic production was terrible, and the government rationed imports through replenishment licenses. If an exporter sold 100 rupees of textiles abroad, they received a license to import exactly 20 rupees of artificial thread. Many exporters weren't using their licenses, so Ambani stepped in, offering premium prices. By accumulating dozens of these fragmented licenses, he silently cornered the incoming funnel of India's synthetic thread imports. This level of aggression terrified his conservative business partner. Anticipating a price spike, Ambani hoarded massive amounts of thread inventory. When his partner panicked and forced a sale, Ambani bought entire stock himself. Weeks later, prices skyrocketed, netting him a fortune and prompting a permanent split. Dominating the import trade gave him leverage, but his margins were still at the mercy of others. Protecting his profits meant moving backward up the supply chain to become the manufacturer himself. He purchased land in Gujarat and built the massive Naroda factory, launching his own premium textile brand called Vimal. Instead of competing purely on price, he positioned it as a premium mass-market product, pouring millions into extensive advertising campaigns and hundreds of franchise stores across the country. To fund this massive expansion without relying on elite institutional banks, he did something highly unusual for 1977. He took his company, Reliance, public with an IPO aimed directly at India's middle class, turning everyday citizens into his primary investors. The success of the stock painted a target on his back. In 1982, a hostile bear cartel from Kolkata launched a full-scale attack, executing a massive short-selling campaign designed to destroy Reliance's stock price.
Looking at this chart, you can see their strategy. The cartel borrowed shares and dumped them, triggering a panic that pushed the price from 131 rupees down to 121. Their goal was to buy back at rock bottom and pocket the difference. But they walked into a trap. A mysterious network of foreign buyers stepped in to absorb every single dumped share. This massive wall of buying pressure squeezed the cartel, rocketing the price up to 201 rupees and bankrupting the attackers at a massive loss. Crushing the cartel earned Ambani a reputation as the fierce protector of the small investor. With massive public capital now at his disposal, he was ready to step even further backward up the supply chain. Making the fabric wasn't enough. Reliance was still buying the raw chemical polyester threads from outside suppliers. So Ambani initiated the construction of a massive chemical plant at Patalganga to manufacture the raw polyester internally. This aggressive expansion triggered a vicious corporate war, with legacy rivals like Nusli Wadia of Bombay dying. What followed were sudden, mysterious government delays on Reliance's manufacturing licenses, combined with highly coordinated negative media campaigns aimed at derailing the project. The sheer stress of dodging investigations and fighting off corporate sabotage took a severe physical toll. In 1986, Ambani suffered a massive stroke that paralyzed his right side. Yet, defying expectations that his career was over, he returned to the helm just weeks later with a sharp mind and an unbroken drive. His resilience was immediately tested again when devastating monsoon floods completely submerged the Patalganga plant. With hundreds of crores of machinery underwater, his son, Mukesh, took charge. He led an army of workers on a war footing to dismantle, clean, and rebuild the entire facility in barely a month. By surviving his failing health, ruthless corporate rivals, and natural disasters, Ambani successfully integrated both the textiles and the synthetic chemicals into his empire. There was only one monumental link left in the chain to conquer. To make petrochemicals, you need crude oil. In 1993, Ambani announced a $6 billion project to bypass his raw material suppliers entirely. He was going to build India's first private sector oil refinery. Constructed in just 3 years, the Jamnagar complex achieved a staggering scale. Operating at peak efficiency, this single facility would go on to refine 25% of all the crude oil processed in India. This visual chain illustrates the completion of his backward integration strategy. Reliance now owned the entire physical life cycle of its business. They controlled everything from extracting raw crude oil to refining it into petrochemicals, spinning those into synthetic threads, weaving the textiles, and finally selling the clothes in their own retail stores. In April 2002, just months before his death, he addressed his shareholders one last time. He reminded them of the teenage boy who had worked as a gas station clerk in Aden, dreaming of one day building a global energy company for his own country. Ambani outpaced the market by relentlessly walking backward down his own supply chain. He ended his career owning every step of the process, replacing the gas pumps of his youth with a global energy network of his own design.